Matt and I are going to pull back the curtain on the hidden epidemic of energy failure that almost no one is talking about, and even fewer doctors are really testing for.
Welcome to Health Decoded, your number one source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Health Decoded. I am your host, Dr. Alessi.
Your co-host, Matt Tack.
What a great day to be alive. It's good to see you, my friend. My legs are feeling it after that leg day we did yesterday. I was struggling to move this morning.
I was actually, one of the good things too that that was good. When you record yourself, you do look at your movement. Like, you know how, when you're in-game activity or you're doing something with the intention to get a little bit better, it is good to record yourself because you look at hip hinges, just things that you're doing that you want to make sure you're getting the proper movement in. I think about that even a little bit more now as I see Ronnie Coleman aging and how the dude just can't even walk, and how important it is while you're strength training and doing various exercises of getting the proper structure, depth, movement. Just that functional piece is so important. So I think about that stuff a lot.
He was also squatting thousands of pounds, so it's maybe a little different, but
thousands of pounds.
Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, that was degeneration from obviously like
overuse.
Number one, overuse, which led to probably poor posture at times, right? He's pushing through things, different ailments at times, which naturally your body, hey, I have a right hip flexor that is, slightly deficient. I'm still going to put, 800 pounds on my back. Yeah. Like probably not a good time. It's naturally going to create imbalances. So,
and then just obviously blasting anabolics to the point that his cartilage is probably, he's probably so inflamed, but, that's you push yourself to that max, to that level, you got to expect that maybe on the back end of that, there's going to be some repercussions, right? That's like,
but I mean, you also look at Mark Bell. Mark Bell squatted way more weight than him, right?
True.
And that's a guy who's, he definitely has his ailments, but is recovered, and he, on his podcast,
he looks good.
Is probably one of the best because he probably said that wasn't the best idea. Now these are the things that I'm doing to reverse that.
And now he's like a runner and a functional guy. He's doing all the functional movements and stuff, and he's still jacked. He's still in great shape. He's obviously not nearly as big, but he's healthier. So, he had to pivot for longevity.
Yeah. Love that. And that's
awesome, man. It's
about today.
It's great to see you, bro. And we're excited for this one. What we're going to talk about today is really, the hidden epidemic of mitochondrial dysfunction. And a lot of this is probably going to be stuff that people maybe have heard, but don't really know much about. So we want to kind of dive into. So, really, let's get real. If you're tired all the time and you're dragging through your day, you're crashing after meals, or you're waking up and you're already exhausted, it's probably not just because you need more sleep or coffee, but the real problem is your mitochondria. These are the power plants inside nearly every cell in your body. And so if they're not doing their job correctly, that's going to make things tougher. And so when they're not making energy efficiently, everything will suffer. Your brain, hormones, your workouts, your mood, and then obviously even your motivation. And so it's not about just feeling off, but chronic fatigue and burnout, brain fog, even conditions like fibromyalgia or long COVID, early aging, they all have one thing in common, and that's the mitochondria becoming dysfunctional and breaking down. And so in today's episode, Matt and I are going to pull back the curtain on the hidden epidemic of energy failure that almost no one is talking about, and even fewer doctors are really testing for. And so here's what we're going to break down real quick. What's silently damaging your mitochondria every day, how to know if your mitochondria are underperforming, and then we're going to give you some action items, some simple but powerful ways to recharge your energy from the inside out. We're going to talk about the most effective nutrition, supplements, and cutting-edge therapies that actually help to rebuild your mitochondrial function, not just supplement some energy temporarily. And so if you feel like you're sick and you're running on fumes all the time, even when you're getting adequate sleep, this is the episode for you. So look no further. Stay tuned for some great content. So let's do this. Let's start with what are the mitochondria? Why are they breaking down? So if you ever feel like your body's battery is just dead, no matter how much sleep you get, how much coffee you drink, then yes, it's time to address the mitochondria. So what mitochondria are, they are tiny organelles in nearly every cell of your body. Think of them like a microscopic power plant. Their job is to turn the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe into ATP, which is your body's cellular energy currency. So if you have no mitochondria, you have no energy, period. You die. So when people say they're always tired, whether it's a mom with brain fog or the guy who crashes after every workout or somebody recovering from long COVID, what they're often referring to is mitochondrial dysfunction. It's not just a motivation issue or mental fatigue. And so a quote from the Journal of Cell in 2015 is quoted saying, mitochondrial dysfunction is a hallmark of chronic disease and aging. It's basically at the root of all of these long chronic diseases that lead to premature aging. And so this is a big deal. Research is now linking poor mitochondrial function to chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, long COVID, hormonal imbalances, neurodegenerative diseases, and even the natural processes of aging itself. I'll say natural with air quotes there, right? And the scary part is that we're surrounded by things that are quietly wrecking our mitochondria every day. Most people just have no idea. So you don't have to be sick to be dysfunctional. You just have to feel like you're running low or low on power all the time to kind of start putting these pieces together. So what are the big things that are doing the damage to our mitochondria? There are really four big categories of mitochondrial damage that most people are dealing with. So number one, and probably the heaviest, is environmental toxins. Things like heavy metals, the pesticides that are on all the food, mold, and plastics, which is basically in everything now. These can all disrupt the mitochondrial DNA and then thus block that ATP production. The next is nutrient deficiencies. So your mitochondria require what are called cofactors, things like B vitamins, magnesium, CoQ10 to function. Without these, it'd be like trying to run your car with just gas and no oil. Next, lifestyle factors that can disrupt the mitochondria. Poor sleep on a repetitive basis, right? Not just not enough sleep, but not enough quality sleep. This is going to disrupt the mitochondrial repair cycle, right? When they're working, they need to be repairing over time as well. Chronic stress, which is going to flood your system with cortisol, will damage mitochondria. And then sedentary behavior, so not having enough movement in your body, is going to weaken the mitochondria over time. And then the last on the list here is the overuse of medications. Medications are basically toxins, right? Your body has to process them. So things like statins, which we've discussed actually in maybe 2 episodes ago, how statins block CoQ10, which we know is crucial for mitochondrial energy. And then things like the overuse of antibiotics and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen, they've been shown to impair mitochondrial DNA replication. So what are some real quick practical fixes for these situations, right, where people can start taking control? And we're going to obviously deep dive a little bit more on these, but prioritizing your deep sleep. This is when your mitochondria regenerate. So making sure we're using good sleep hygiene practices, things like blackout curtains, using magnesium glycinate before bed, and then a good wind down routine, which we've discussed before as well, getting off the screens. Cut out seed oils and ultra processed foods. Just do it, right? These have no place in your body to be used for anything. So what they do is they damage the membranes of your cells and your mitochondria. So sticking to things like healthy fats, olive oils, avocados, grass-fed butter, omega-3s. And then obviously the daily movement, which we will never stop preaching. Things like that zone 2 cardio, right? Low to moderate intensity exercise, which is going to trigger the mitochondrial biogenesis, literally your body building more mitochondria. And that's what we want. We want more energy factories that are going to work better. And it's not just about perfection. It's about giving the body the raw materials and signals it needs to produce energy efficiently again.
So how do you know of mitochondrial dysfunction and you have it, and how to track it? So now that you understand, and thank you, Dr. Alessi, about what mitochondrial function are and why they matter, let's talk about how you actually know if yours is working well or it's simply falling apart. So here it is. A lot of people walk around saying, I'm just tired. I have brain fog. And that kind of fatigue isn't normal. It's actually a red flag. We constantly need to be evaluating ourselves. It's one of the first signs your mitochondria is potentially struggling. So common warning signs of mitochondrial dysfunction. And if any of these are happening on a regular basis, your mitochondria may be waving that white flag, help. So if you feel tired all the time, no matter how much you sleep, right? That's actually a tough diagnosis. So if you have a partner, I would kind of monitor that, right? That's something my wife does for me. Hey, how am I sleeping? And then measure that measurable the next day. You have brain fog. That's something I absolutely had. Brain fog was a really, really important thing that was interrupting my general day-to-day lifestyle. So your mind just won't click, it won't trigger, it won't register. You crash after workouts. Instead of feeling that energized feeling post-workout, do you just feel just really lethargic, right? Another one, your mood is unpredictable. So you have these swings being anxiety, irritability, and really, really low energy. That's something to measure when you're at low mitochondria dysfunction risk, right? And you're getting sick more often and taking longer to recover. These aren't just the signs of aging. It could potentially be where you're deficient in mitochondria. So these aren't personality flaws or just getting older, as I said. They're often a cellular energy issue in disguise. So here's some testing and how you can assess the mitochondria. So let's get tactical. There's a few powerful tools and you can use to test the mitochondria function and recover that capacity. An organic acid test, also known as OAT. The urine test gives clues about mitochondria byproducts. Elevated markers like succinic acid and lactic acid can point to energy production problems. So number 2, the Dutch test. This is hormone and cortisol. If your adrenalines are flatlined, it usually is tied to mitochondria burnout. So Dutch helps assess adrenal fatigue overlap and the circadian rhythm dysfunction. If you don't know about the circadian rhythm dysfunction, that is ultimately your sleep cycles. So we can talk a little bit more about that in depth, but really understanding your circadian rhythm is really, really important. Heart rate variability, HRV tracking. So low HRV, your nervous system is stuck in a fight or flight and your mitochondria are struggling to recover. So low HRV is associated with mitochondrial dysfunction and increased risk of all cause of mortality. That's a quote from the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology in 2016. So another measurable, VO2 max and lactate testing for athletes or biohackers. VO2 max is the gold standard for metabolic fitness and mitochondrial performance. Elevated resting lactate could signal impaired mitochondrial ATP production, which ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, which is a form of energy, right? So it's how your body recovers, whether it's in strength exercising, whether it's just purely day-to-day processing and thinking, you're constantly reproducing ATP. So here are some practical tips to start tracking and optimizing today. I love this because we need to be prioritizing this. This doesn't have to be complicated, so don't make it complicated. And you don't need a lab coat. You just need to start paying attention. Track HRV with wearables. Some of the ones that we recommend, and I know Dr. Alessi uses a lot, is the Garmin watch. The Garmin watch gives direct feedback. Whoop Band is another one that requires a subscription, and the Aura Ring, which also requires a subscription. But all three are great in terms of functionality, depending on how you want to wear them. So watch how HRV trends over time. Drops in HRV often show up before burnout and illness hits. Use a daily energy journal. Journaling is a crucial thing, but it should be utilized not only for a therapeutic measure, but also just to get an understanding of where you're at day to day. So write down how your energy, mood, and focus feel 30 to 60 minutes after meals, exercise, and sleep. Patterns will emerge. They'll usually be directly tied to mitochondrial function. Next thing, prioritize active recovery. This is something usually people become sedentary after exercise or a component thereof, right? You can't just train harder and expect more energy. You need time to recover and rebuild mitochondrial reserves through sleep, zone 2 cardio. And if you don't know zone 2 cardio is a little bit escalating your heart rate, right? A little bit more than you would be in just a static state, or a very leisure walking in zone 1. So zone 2 cardio, light movement, and even things like sauna therapy can prioritize mitochondrial function. So point here, don't wait for burnout or a health scare, right? We do this podcast so you can be proactive about your health. Start training your energy systems the same way you train your muscles or mindset. You feel it in days, more clarity, more stamina, and fewer crashes. Now, let's get into some practical ways that you can biohack your lifestyle to enhance your mitochondria. But before that, here's a real quick word from our sponsors.
This episode of Health Decoded is brought to you by Authentic Nutrition, the brand redefining what it means to fuel your body the right way. At Authentic Nutrition, they believe that what you put into your body matters. That's why every single product is crafted with clean, premium ingredients and dosed with maximum efficacy to ensure you're not just meeting your health goals, you're exceeding them. No fillers, no shortcuts, no gimmicks. Whether it's their advanced supplements for energy, recovery, or gut health, you can trust that what's on the label is exactly what's in the bottle. Authentic Nutrition delivers science-backed formulations that work as hard as you do. If you're tired of products that promise the world but don't deliver, it's time to make the switch to Authentic Nutrition. Elevate your health with transparency, quality, and results you can feel. Check them out today at AuthenticNutrition.com and use promo code Alessi15 to get 15% off. That's THENTIC Nutrition.com, promo code ALESSI15 to save 15% and take the first step toward real, lasting health. Authentic Nutrition. Fuel your best self. Now back to the episode. All right, welcome back. Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's so important to track. And real quick, man, I came down with something. Maybe must have been a virus that I felt for a couple of days last week where I was feeling that low energy. And sure enough, the 2 days before that, every morning I'd look at my Garmin watch, my HRV was going down. I was like, what the heck's going on? Why is this happening? And then boom, I started feeling something, right? As though it's like that indicator that my body's starting to push. Well, let's get into this. Let's talk real quick. I want to talk a little bit about some nutrition and supplementation that we can use to fuel the mitochondria. So one of the more controllable aspects of mitochondrial health is what you're putting into your body. So we like to say food is either fuel or friction. And if you're constantly tired, inflamed, or foggy, it's time to clean up that energy supply chain, right? So what a mitochondrial friendly diet is going to look like. If your mitochondria had a grocery list, this is what would be on it. High antioxidant foods, prioritizing things like berries, leafy greens, herbs, dark chocolate. So there's a little bonus for you. That's tasty. Green tea. These things are going to neutralize free radicals that damage the mitochondrial membranes. Next, using things like healthy fats. So think like avocados, extra virgin olive oil, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised eggs. Fats are the preferred fuel source for your mitochondria, especially in a low-carb or fasting state. And then clean protein, grass-fed meat, wild-caught salmon, collagen is a great hack, and bone broth. So the amino acids in protein are needed for mitochondrial repair and the enzyme production. So when I work with patients suffering from fatigue, we often start with a Mediterranean, paleo, or even ketogenic approach, each of which is going to support mitochondrial health by reducing inflammation and stabilizing their blood sugar. Now let's talk about some of the power supplements that we would then implement to recharge the mitochondria. So even the cleanest diet may need help, especially if you're dealing with chronic stress, illness, or aging. We talked about this in a previous episode. Supplements can reignite that cellular engine and fill in the gaps where the diet may be lacking. So number one is CoQ10, also known as ubiquinone or ubiquinol, which is critical for ATP production in the electron transport chain. So basically, this is the process your body uses to convert and create energy. Levels of this CoQ10 molecule will decline with age and with statin use. So a quote from the Journal of Clinical Biochemistry and Nutrition in 2017, supplementation with CoQ10 improved fatigue and mitochondrial energy metabolism in patients with fibromyalgia. So next on the list, PQQ, which is pyrroloquinone quinone. A little mouthful there. But basically this PQQ, this supplement stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the creation of new mitochondria. So think of it as the foreman who builds you a new energy factory, right? Next on the list, magnesium. Magnesium is so critical and probably the one thing we recommend almost everybody be using because it's involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including the energy transfer and muscle function. So most people are deficient, especially athletes or high stress individuals, in magnesium. Highly recommend. Next is L-carnitine. Basically, this acts as a shuttle, moving fatty acids into the mitochondria for fuel, especially helpful for those on a keto diet or those with sluggish metabolism. We're going to supplement with that. And then last on the list here is alpha lipoic acid, or ALA. This is a potent antioxidant that supports blood sugar regulation, which is a key factor in building resilience for those mitochondria. So here's some quick practical tips that you can implement today as you're listening. Start your day with protein and healthy fats. A breakfast looking like a few eggs, avocado, and some sauteed spinach. This is going to stabilize that blood sugar and feed the mitochondria. Skip the cereal, right? We already talked about this in previous episodes. Cereal is not food. It is a marketing ploy to get you to buy their stuff. Try a sunlight walk in the morning, right? Morning light is going to anchor your circadian rhythm and signal your mitochondria that it's time to start making energy. Plus, the sunlight will help regulate cortisol and melatonin for better sleep later in the day. Your sleep is determined by how you do in the morning. And then start low with some CoQ10, maybe about 100 milligrams a day is a good dose for most people. And especially important if you're taking statins, which are going to deplete that natural CoQ10 level and thus lead to some fatigue. But remember, supplements are not the substitute for lifestyle. They are powerful accelerators. And when you combine them with the right nutrients, with sleep, sunlight, and movement, you're going to start to feel more like yourself again, or maybe for the first time.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And then here are the lifestyle factors that recharge and drain your mitochondria. One of the things that I always like to say, you can eat the best diet and take all the right supplements, but if your lifestyle is draining your cellular battery every day, you still feel tired. In this segment, we're going to break down daily habits that either build resilience in your mitochondria or you can just completely burn them out. So the hormonic stress, mitochondrial resilience, and cold exposure and heat therapy are what we call hormetic stressors. Small controlled doses of stress that your mitochondria can be more robust. Cold exposure, ice baths, cold showers, cryotherapy, those activate brown fat and triggers mitochondrial biogenesis, which is new growth. Heat therapy, which I'm a massive proponent of, and I think you would get the most value out of, is infrared sauna and steam rooms. Increase the heat shock proteins, detox pathways, and overall cellular repair. People need a minimum of really 20 minutes in heat therapy. And if you can do it daily, great. If you can do it 3 times a week, phenomenal, right? Those are ways to just naturally have more mitochondrial resilience. Think of contrast therapy, alternating between hot and cold as a mitochondrial workout. You're training your cells to handle stress and recover stronger. Here we go in terms of what people don't really think about a lot is that mental stress or the oxidative load that you're putting on your body. Chronic psychological stress raises cortisol levels and increase free radical production, which directly damages mitochondria. So think about that. A lot of people, I want to pause here for a minute because people don't think about how much oxidative stress and load they're putting on their body, and then ultimately it's too late. So these are the proper measures to take when you do contrast therapy is you're reducing that stress load, right? You're putting alternative stressors in place to reduce that oxidative stress. So stress is one of the biggest and most underestimated mitochondrial sabotage. And high cortisol, impaired energy production, poor sleep, and lower mitochondrial output, right? That's what oxidative stress does to the overall load on your body. So that's why it's imperative to really understand that. Now, what are different ways you can enhance it? Red light therapy. Think of ones for the biohackers. But even if you're new to it, red light therapy is one of the most exciting and non-invasive tools available. So what does it do? It stimulates the cytochrome, the C oxidase, which is the mitochondrial to produce more ATP, which is cellular energy, reduces inflammation and improves blood flow, and enhance cognitive performance and overall skin health. The largest organ in our body is our skin, right? So massive, massive way to just build small incremental habits into your week to week or even your day to day. So practical tips you can start this week. Here are 3 ways. Use contrast therapy. Try it out. Sauna and cold 2 to 3 times a week. Doesn't have to be fancy. Can be a hot shower, then a cold rinse. That's the introductory method. Or it could be going to somewhere like in Tampa Bay, like Kodawari. So shout out Kodawari, is doing that contrast therapy between an actual sauna and cold plunge. So those are 2 great ways. One, an introduction, and one, I guess, more like professional method, right? Breath work and meditation to lower your cortisol. That's something I've been implementing on a regular basis, even in my car, right? We have an app that we formed essentially just to take me through meditative exercise to be more mindful of my breath work. So try 4, 7, 8 breathing box or guided meditation. And so 5 to 10 minutes a day can dramatically reduce mitochondrial drain from the chronic stress loads that you're putting on your body. So use red light therapy for 10 minutes a day. This is a great way too if you have access to red light therapy, especially if you work indoors or live in a low light environment. Focus on the chest, face, or even neck areas, any area to enrich the mitochondria. So this is what I have to leave you with. Lifestyle is the foundation. Every breath, every walk in the sun, every moment of stillness is either creating or costing energy. Be cognizant, stay consistent. Your mitochondria will thank you.
Yeah, that's good, man. I love those practical things that people can just start doing, because that's the whole point of this. Is like, obviously people want the education, but education without implementation is worthless. And so listen to this a couple times if you need, and start putting into place some of these things we talked about. It's easy, it's not expensive, and your body will obviously know the difference and feel the difference. So just a recap from today: if you're constantly tired or foggy or unmotivated, it's not laziness. It's not like some character flaw. It could be your biology. And so specifically those broken energy systems at the cellular level. And so chronic fatigue is often a mitochondrial issue. And so, what is kind of like this new paradigm we've created, man?
So here's the new paradigm: test, track, rebuild. So at the end of the day, we've entered a new era of healthcare where you can track your energy, test your biology, and fix the root cause. You don't have to settle for a life of low energy. Here's what we recommend to get started. And here are action steps for the listeners. Track your energy daily, as we aforementioned. Use the tools, the HRV monitors, Aura, Whoop, Garmin being one of them, to get a real picture of how your body's recovering. Remember, journal your energy, levels of sleep, exercise. 1 to 10, I think, is a great way just to have a preliminary scorecard of how you feel day to day, until you get to where you want to be. And then you can level up, in other areas. Order functional labs. This is one proponent that we are offering at Alessi Functional Health, is just being your caretaker, being educated and knowing more, right, about your body and your standard of wellness. So consider organic acid test, dust test, or a nutrient panel to identify the mitochondrial blocks. Work with a provider who understands bioenergetics, not just symptoms, right? And then pick one thing to get started. I'm a big believer in picking one thing to get started and doing it for a month, right? See how you feel. and then adding things along the way that you get a little bit better at. So maybe it's starting with a daily CoQ10 and making sure it's putting on your counter right next to a glass of water, so that you get some water in you in the morning and then get your CoQ10 or any type of supplementation. Walking in the morning sunlight. Hey, I'm getting up. I'm going to walk outside and get indirect sunlight exposure, and then cutting out some seed oils. Hey, I'm going to drastically pull back on maybe some chips that I might like and find an alternative for those and cutting those out inch by inch. So small changes compound your mitochondria, and they are constantly adapting to those lifestyle changes. You don't have to run on empty anymore. Rebuilding your mitochondria means reclaiming your energy, your focus, and your life.
Beautifully said, man. And yeah, again, we're always here to help. This podcast is obviously it's free. All we ask is that if you find value in it, you share it, but we're here to give value. So this is to educate our listeners, our patients, and then ultimately give them some action steps that they can implement into their life. Now, if you need more, right? If you need more guidance, if you need more help, please visit AlessiFunctionalHealth.com and learn more about our functional medicine program that can help you improve the health of your mitochondria. So you can always schedule a consultation. Listeners of the Health Decoded podcast are always going to get exclusive discounts, price reductions on appointments, supplements, blood work, everything, right? We just want to do that as a way to give back to you for supporting us and this show.
And as always, if you found value in today's show, like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Want to get in touch with us or be featured on an episode? Email us your questions at ask@AlessiFXHealth.com. And then go ahead, visit us at AlessiFXHealth.com, sign up for our newsletter, and check out our resource page to learn more about our approach to nutrition and cutting-edge therapies.
Awesome. And thank you again for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the science, bust the myths, and help you take control of your health naturally. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources and personalized support, visit us at AlessiFunctionalHealth.com and sign up for our newsletter. To hear your questions answered live on the show, send them to ask@AlessiFXHealth.com. That's ask@AlessiFXHealth.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.